because it was either my Aunt Fanny or my Uncle Junie, and they were like, Philco Joe! So I was like, you know what, I like that. Philco Joe. What up, everybody? This is your boy, Philco Joe, and I am back with another episode talking about hands. And I think I might do a two-part episode with this, where I'm basically just giving general information on the hand overall in the first video, and I will begin doing a couple of drawings to show you how I handle and tackle certain issues with the hands whenever I'm drawing them, and leave you with that, because I want this video to be short, so this is something you can kind of take away and apply right away, and then come back either in the middle of the week or the end of the week to get more into detail. And with that, I'll get more into anatomy and into how to draw the hand and deal with issues of lighting, which I'm kind of going to touch on in this first episode. All right, so the first thing that I think should be known, in my opinion, is that hopefully you can notice my cursor right here. That's a messed up smile right there. Anyway, so the first thing to know is that, if you notice here, I've got some illustrations up just from, I decided to do these so I could warm up and provide visual reference for you. Okay, so the hand by itself is nothing without the arm. Okay, so if you want to work on hands, I think it's very helpful if you don't think of the hand by itself, but think of the hand as an extension of the arm. Okay, so you have the upper arm, which has the shoulder. Okay, let me add another layer so I'm not drawing directly on top of this. So you have the upper arm, which has the shoulder. Okay, your biceps and your triceps. All right, you have your forearm, which has this supinator longus muscle, okay, and then jumps into, or the extensor carpi radialis muscle. I think it's supinator longus in some books, but don't get confused by that. Basically, it's your forearm muscles on the top part right here. That's a part of your forearms, okay? And these are all the muscles that I'm going to show from this view, okay? But I'm showing you these muscles because I want you to understand the relationship, okay? The upper arm, the shoulder, is kind of like the motor for the entire arm, right? It's a really big muscle. Then you've got your tris and your bis, okay, which control your forearms, okay? And then you've got your forearm muscles, which control the wrist, and your wrist controls your hand. So I'm saying all of this to just make the point that it's easier to think of the hand as grouped into the forearm or grouped with the wrist, because there are tendons that extend from your forearm muscles and go over the bones in your fingers that cause your fingers to flex out in this position, or cause your fingers to ball up, okay, into a fist. All right, it's just kind of like the thumb folding over and then boom, right? So now the extending of your fingers out in this direction is caused by this group, your extensor group of the forearms, and the balling of your fingers into this direction is caused by this group, your flexor group of muscles. And here, there's a little bit right there, right? Actually, these are going in the wrong direction. I think your flexor muscles roll this way. Yeah, that feels right. Oops. Boom, boom. So these flex over here, causing your fingers to curl back. Uh, these muscles, or well, actually, yeah, well, all muscles flex, but this is a flexor group. So when they're activated, they cause your tendons to pull, to tighten. So it tightens, pulling your tendons back, which cause your fingers to fold back into a fist. And these muscles right here, your extensor group on your forearm, when they are activated, they tighten, pulling the tendons on top, which cause your fingers to curl out. Okay? So there's always this concept of flexing and extending throughout the entire body. So there's a flexion that moves your hand, moves your fingers out, and or I'm sorry, there's an extension that moves your fingers out. There's a flexion that causes your fingers to ball up into a fist. The same thing happens from this view. Okay, if you're looking down on your hand, or you hold your hand up in front of you to where you're looking at the palm, and you flip it over, then you're looking at the knuckle side or the dorsal side. There are muscles in between your hand bones that flex and that basically just flex, right? Then there are abductor muscles, but I'll get into all of that stuff next week. So for your as far as how your fingers move, right? They can fan out, and your thumb and fingers fan out because of muscles in between the bones. Okay, and so you have this big chunk of muscle around the thumb that gives it this free range of motion. Okay, now you have this muscle inside the index, this muscle inside the ring, and this muscle inside the pinky finger that makes your fingers fan out this way, right? I'm looking at this animation or this drawing right here, the hands with the fingers spread out. Okay, and they spread out from the middle finger. That's something to keep in mind. They always spread out from the middle finger. The middle finger is sort of the axis to as far as where to move from and towards. All right, if that's the right word. But you have the muscles that move them out. Now to move them in, you've got two muscles inside here. You've got a big fleshy muscle right there. And you've got this muscle inside your index. And again, this big chunky muscle around the base of the thumb. Okay. So I'm just kind of going from memory with this. Next week, I'll get way more in detail and make sure that things are much more as accurate as they can be. But I am pretty sure that's how it works. Here's what I do. I break this entire mass down into a wedge shape. Okay? And then, and if I turn that layer off, you see what happens there, right? And then I find the knuckles, and then I'll drag it across like this. You see that there? Then, to incorporate the thumb, these are the angular lines, right? I will just add on this part right here, like so. Okay? And since I still have this up, I want you to see how this works, okay? Now, you've got, let's say you want to tilt this hand so that it kind of rotates this way, right? Well, if we're drawing this in perspective and we have this top shape here, and we're drawing this in perspective, it kind of does this, right? Just going to draw that shape right there, all right? Now, there's the hand, okay? Now, if you use your own hand as a reference, you know that if we're looking at this shape from the side, it would do something like this. It'll, from your wrist, it'll kind of rise up to your knuckles. We break it down like that, right? Do it without the thumb, okay? It'll kind of do that shape. Now, I'm looking at my own hand also as I'm doing this. Okay, so it'll be something like that. And then I will go into the wedge shape to represent my fingers. Now, if I want to add the thumb, okay, you can break your thumb down however you want, but use the shape that makes the most sense to you. All right, so the base of the thumb comes immediately off the wrist when I'm using my hand. All right, so I'm going to use sort of like a big blocky shape for the base, sort of like that comes down. And then I'm just going to use a straight rectangular shape to represent my thumb. Okay? That's how I'm breaking that down. Now, if I want to translate this over here, right now you can keep it straight. I will essentially, now you can bend this if you want. You know, sometimes that's what I'll do, right? I'll add a little bend to it. There's nothing wrong with that, right? Add a little bend to it. Make the end a nice clean edge shape, right? Okay. Now, I would take this shape and I would do it one, or you know what? You could do it this way if you want to keep it very, very basic, or you could do it this way. Okay. If you want to get more of an accurate depiction of the edge of the fingers, okay? And we're coming here, we're going down like this, we're going down like this. So let's say, okay, I get this, but I want this end right here to taper like this, because that's what the fingers are doing realistically, right? That's what you see right here. They come down to this tapered end right here. So, okay, so this is how I would break it down. I would find this point, and then I would just bring it down. I would carry it all the way over like this, and then just kind of go in and erase that end off like that. This is an actual shape in space, so it has to have a side, and it has to have a tip. All right, I know I'm jumping all over the place, but that's another major point that I want to emphasize, okay? Think of all of these shapes as geometric shapes. This is important because everything has a top, a bottom, and sides. So if you want to draw a head, your head has a top and a bottom and a side. If you want to draw a body, your body has a top, bottom, side. Right? You want to draw a pelvis, top, bottom, and sides. Okay? Now, I'll share a trick with you all that I learned. Because some of you may be asking, okay, Philip, well, how do I get from a cylinder? Let's say, you talked about doing these construction lines. What if I want to get from a cube shape to a cylinder with construction lines? You transition. That's how you do it. So looking at this right here, you would just transition. You would chisel that off, and you would use the perspective points right, and then you would chisel this edge off like that. And then you would chisel this edge off like this. And you basically mirror what you do to one side of the cube, you do to the other side. I hope this is making sense. Okay, and then you would do that. And you would start to form a cylindrical type of object. Now, this matters, and I'll jump into this next week. This matters because when it comes down to drawing these objects, they're supposed to be three-dimensional, right? You have to understand that there are sides, there are tops and there are sides, because ultimately we can't see an object unless there's light shining on it. And whenever there's light shining on it, the light tells us which side is in shadow, which side is receiving half of the light, and which side is receiving full light. Okay? So in this particular case, if the light source is coming from over here, then this part is going to be in deep shadow. This part is going to be in light shadow, right? And then this part might be in an even lighter source of shadow than this part over here, right? And so that's the entire point to doing these sides. All right, and I'll get into more of that next week. But the main thing is that you have to understand that there's a top, a bottom, and a side, and that's what's also going to make it easier to draw hands from different angles. That's probably the most important part, is that you understand that things have a tops and a bottom and a side. Okay, so if I'm drawing this thumb shape right here, so I've broken this thumb shape down. Okay, well, what does this thumb shape look like from the top or from the side? Use your own thumb and break it down. You know what I'm saying? And if this is too hard, there's nothing wrong with just using a straight wedge shape. Okay, so if you just want to take this out and say, hey, that's too hard for me, let me just do a wedge shape like this. Okay, fine. You can do that. So it looks something like this. This is the hand. This is what I'm doing with the thumb. I'm making it literally emit. So again, I just wanted to do a general breakdown on the hand, the general ideas of how to draw the hand from different positions, and a little bit of anatomy with the hand. But just remember that it's easiest to handle when you break it down into a basic geometric shape. And just remember that it is attached to the wrist, which is attached to the forearm. The hand as a whole does not move unless the wrist moves, and the wrist is moving because of the muscles and tendons that are attached to it from the forearm. So just remember those key things. Also, to not be afraid to make it a big wedge shape, and then when you find the knuckles, create a line for the knuckles that separates them from the tip of the fingers, and then you can add on your thumb wedge on the side. And remember that there's a top, there's a bottom, and that there's a side to this wedge. And that the sides represent basically your index finger and thumb, the side of your pinky finger, the top part is your knuckles, and the bottom part is the palm of your hand. In the palm of your hand, it's going to fold on itself at the knuckles. So, just little tidbits to take away from this video. Also, if you find this helpful, feel free to share it with folks. Please like and subscribe. This video is a direct request that I got from someone, and like I said, I'm going to follow up in the middle of this week or next week with another video that's detailing more about the hands and how I go about drawing finished hands. All right, and so that's it for today. Get back with me next week. Be sure to follow me on Facebook. I am at the Art Martialist Designs on Facebook, and Philco_Joe with a lowercase p on Instagram. So I will see you in the middle of the week or next week. Peace out.